Alright guys, so this is going to be a quick video tutorial on how to move over your storyboards that you created on paper over to animate for this animatic per se. So you're going to go ahead and hit create new, and the size of your stage all depends on the template that you used. So if you use the one that had 4 or 3 in one page, you're going to be looking more at the full HD. If you did something that had the 6 up, I believe HD works fine. Anything smaller than that would be the standard. So I know for a fact that this would be mine, and don't worry, you can always change this as you start working, but the frame rate should always be set to 24, and make sure this is set to ActionScript 3.0, and you're going to hit create. Alright, so the best advice I can give you is that you should take a picture of the paper, right? Email it to your student account or upload it to your Google Drive with your student email. So I will show you an example here. This is from a student this year, so I'm going to go ahead and hit download. Oops, I already had it. Right, and then two ways you can import this. You can open up your folder, right? Your Finder, look for your downloads, and then drag and drop it. Oopsie, there we go. So that's one way. I'm going to delete this to show you another way. You can come up to the top, File, Import, Import to Stage, look for your downloads, right? Because I had already imported one, it's going to give me this message, but I'm just going to hit Replace, and there we have it. So I want to readjust this, right? You have to use your free transform tool up here. Hover over towards one of the corners until you see that little arrow that's curved. And if you hold the shift key at the same time, it'll rotate things, by 90 degrees or 45 degrees, I'm sorry. And all I'm doing now is kind of resizing this. You want to do one frame or one panel of your paper at a time. So this is the first one I'm working with. Holding shift will help you resize it proportionately. If you don't hold shift, you can distort it if you'd like. That's completely up to you though. I don't like warping images. Now this is the part where if you're sizing up your panels, right, and you're like, oh my god, the size is way off, you would come over to make sure nothing is selected, right? So I'm just going to grab my selection tool, click somewhere out in the gray, and in your properties panel, you'll have something called document settings, and you can come in here and resize this manually. If I click this icon, it'll only do it by this ratio, so make sure you don't click that, but I can come in here and change this. See how it's changing little by little? I'm okay with mine, but again, that's only if you're realizing that you probably didn't choose the right stage size. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to come down here now, rename this layer to my sketches, because that's what this is. This next step is optional. If you wanted to take down the transparency of this, you can come over to your properties, look for the frame tab, hover over color effects, hit the drop down and look for alpha, and then take this down a bit like so. Cool, so now my first panel is set up to my stage. I'm actually going to lock my layer here, and I'm going to create a new one up at the top, and this is actually going to be my and you can honestly label this whatever you want. But in this panel here now, or in this first frame, I'm going to grab this brush tool. Remember, you have different options for brushes. You have this regular classic brush tool, the fluid brush tool, there's this other additional brush tool, right? Can close this now. But it's completely up to you what brush tool you want to use. Remember, there's also settings over here. Make sure you're drawing with object drawing mode off. This should be set to smooth. Use tilt is optional if you're using a tablet, and then pressure sensitivity is also an option. It's up to you completely. Smoothing, make sure this is set up pretty high so you don't see like any jagged lines. So this will be up to you guys what you use, but you're basically going to, sorry, I don't have a good tablet here, but you're now basically going to trace everything. Pardon my terrible example here, just want to get through this video. But let's say that I trace everything perfectly. So my first frame here is done, right? I can now move on to my next frame. So again, use your imagination. Pretend this is all done. I am going to now lock my top layer, unlock my bottom layer. And I'm just going to hold shift and move it over to panel 2, right? Cool. So panel 2 is now lined up to my stage. Now I'm going to lock this one. I'm sorry, I'm going to leave this unlocked because we're going to basically use this reference image, so I'm going to extend it to like over here for now. I'm going to click frame 75 and then hit F5 on my keyboard. Now I'm going to lock it, unlock my top layer, come over to frame 2, right? And you're going to right click, insert blank keyframe. And now you're basically going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over here. Actually, do not like that brush. Trace this. That is super brush. Great. Now trace this. For text like this, says Leon Valley. Remember, you can grab your text tool. Or you can write it out. Just wanted to remind you that you have options over here. I put Wally. Oops. Valley. Capitalize those if this is your story. But okay. In the picture it's tilted. So I'm gonna do that. Alright, cool. Pretend this is all done. Awesome. Now I'm gonna lock this one. Go to my next, sorry, unlock it. Go to my next frame. Right click, insert blank keyframe. Now I can lock it, unlock my bottom one, move over to panel 3, lock it, unlock, and repeat the same thing. So I'm just going to hit pause really quick and go through this whole thing. All right, so let's pretend this entire thing is filled, right? And I've gone through all of my sheets of sketches. I can turn off my sketches layer now and pretend I have a lot of these, right? Once you're done moving all of these over here, we can start focusing on lighting. So you're going to create a new layer, move this below the one with the sketches, and rename this to shading or lighting. This is completely up to you. Right. Sorry about that. I had to take a quick pause, but you're going to create a new layer underneath it. There's keyframes in here, and this is what I'm telling you to do, layers instead. The only colors you're really working with in the shading is either gray, lighter gray if you needed to, but it's very, very basic. You can use black as well, but this is just to give us a sense of the lighting, right? So if you wanted to make something dramatic, like the light is coming in here, right? And maybe it's lighting this part right here. And because we're underneath the animation layer, all the outlines are going to still be saved, right? But let's say this is how dramatic this is can always come back to and change the color to white or just grab the eraser tool. Ooh, much too big. Still not resizing. Sure. Actually gonna lock this before I erase something. But stuff like that, right? Then move on to the next one. If it's bright outside, you're gonna leave it as is, but the sun's up at the top, so I'm assuming all this is gonna be shaded. Cool, that's done. Move on to the next one. Maybe everything behind her will be dark. The cool thing about this is it doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe this is dark over here too. I mean, obviously I'd come back and erase that part, but that is basically the gist of just getting the shading done. I like how this isn't showing me the size of the brush, right? For sure there'd be shade underneath the car. You need to be this specific. No, maybe the cactus is giving off a shadow. Huh. I really do wonder why it's not giving me the size of the brush. And the good thing about having it in its own layer is that if you change your mind about, I don't know, the lighting, right, you can just come back and remove just this and then start all over. Okay, but you'll have your animation, your shading. Once you have all of it done, right, now you can get a sense of timing. So I'd probably want this here for much longer. So all I'd have to do is select my first layer, my first keyframe here, F5 until it reaches the 1 second mark, come to my shading one, do the same thing. You can honestly select both of them at the same time and do F5 together. It'll never be quite like this, right, where everything's 1 second. Depends on what's going on, but right. Let's say, pretend we did all of it. Now we kind of have a sense of your story. Friday, it's just a progress check. So file, save as. This is animatic 1. And this is the file that you will submit to the progress check. And as more progress checks go, you'll just keep submitting the same file. And once we're done, you'll upload your final. But this is just getting set up, how the workflow is going to go. I'll make another video of when you're ready to upload and export. But let me know if you guys have any questions.